Welcome back, everybody. As we were discussing in the last block, we just keep finding more and more evidence and instances that the system is incredibly vulnerable. So how can you have a functioning republic that actually works for the people when the people maybe aren't having their voices heard through their elections? And sadly, we have another example for you, and it involves the illegal alien former Des Moines, Iowa Superintendent Ian Roberts, who was arrested a few weeks ago by ICE. So setting aside the fact that Des Moines hired an illegal alien to run their schools, it turns out that Roberts ended up on the state of Maryland's voter rolls. So help me figure that out. My next guest is absolutely going to. Joining us now is the president of the American Accountability Foundation, Tom Jones. Tom, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to talking about this.
We do as well. And look, it's Maryland. I know a lot of squirrely things happen in the state of Maryland, especially when it comes to election integrity. But last time I checked, and I'm not great at geography, but Iowa and Maryland are not very close.
Yeah, no, exactly. So what happened is this guy came over and went to school in Maryland. I went to a university called Coppin State. So he moved to Maryland and he lived here for a while. And he had a number of jobs in the state. But unfortunately, he registered to vote in Maryland. And really, it seems the policy in Maryland is that we're just going to trust illegal aliens to tell us the truth when they register to vote. And if they check a box that says, yep, I'm a United States citizen, that's all it takes in Maryland to register to vote. And since Maryland happily gives illegal aliens driver's licenses, they can show their driver's license, check a box that says they're a United States citizen, and boom, they're on the voter rolls. It's even worse with the motor voter program on top of that. That really compounds the problem.
So the President Trump has made a new tool available, the SAVE database. Texas used it, even though Texas has pretty tough voter integrity rules. They believe 2,700 illegal immigrants got in. They were able to find them because they were using the database as one of the first states to do that. Is that a good long-term solution? Do we need all states to eventually be using that database to catch those who try to cheat?
Yeah, 100%. Unfortunately, what's happening in Maryland is the director of the State Board of Elections is frustrating the efforts of the Trump administration to clean up the rolls. He refuses to share information with the Trump administration so that they can get illegal aliens off the voter rolls in Maryland. Look, it's clear what they're doing here. They want illegal aliens on the voter rolls in Maryland, so they vote for Democrats. That's why they make it so easy for them to register. That's why the State Board of Election explicitly refuses on numerous occasions now, after demand letters have come from the Department of Justice, to cooperate with the Department of Justice to ensure that only U.S. citizens, only people that are lawfully in the state of Maryland as U.S. citizens are allowed to vote in Maryland elections. Look, if I still lived in Maryland, I'd be pretty upset about this because only U.S. citizens and only Maryland residents should be voting in Maryland elections. But the Maryland Board of Elections seems to only want people that are going to vote for Democrats.
Yeah. Tom, there is, I suppose, a secondary issue here. The primary issue, obviously, is illegal immigrants voting in this country. But to me, you hear often, and we experience it here in California. My husband and I have lived in our house for 6 years, and we still get ballots for the people who lived here before us. And we know them, and we talk to them, and they also get ballots at their current home. So I know that states are the ones who administer elections. They're the ones who control it. They make the rules, all of that. But if we federally can say, all right, one ballot per person, we're the only ones who are printing these ballots, and the federal government then sends that out to the states still administer the election. Is that constitutionally copacetic, and is that maybe a small fix to what's happening?
It might be, but I think it's worth taking a step back and kind of walking through what's going on with Mr. Roberts here, because you bring up a really good point with these absentee ballots. So when we got the voter history for Mr. Roberts, we saw everything that happened with him with the Board of Elections. The one thing we found out is, obviously he was registered to vote. He wasn't in the country illegally, and we know he checked the box and said he was a U.S. citizen. But what's even worse is the state of Maryland and Prince George's County, where he lived, continued to send absentee ballots to his home after the guy moved to Iowa. So you've got this guy, he's illegal, shouldn't be on the ballot, doesn't live in the state anymore, and we're mailing absentee ballots to this guy. Maryland was incredibly lucky that there wasn't a rash of voter fraud with this individual voter. Now, I am confident that it happened with a number of other voters because it's a system without any security in place. They're mailing ballots to an empty home that somebody could have just filled out, scribbled, and then dropped in one of these drop boxes at the local library and voted illegally. So look, there needs to be some kind of reform in place. But when you look at Ian Roberts' voter history with Prince George's County, it's just absentee ballots after absentee ballot going out in the mail, going to this guy's home when he didn't live there. The fact that it wasn't, that there were no votes cast, that part's frankly shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So the question now is, if someone in Maryland can do this and get the vote, then they've negated someone's vote somewhere else, which seems like the equal protection clause of the Constitution is being violated by states that are so lax. Is this a moment for DOJ to go in and sue some of these states saying, hey, someone in Texas is wrongly being wronged because you allowed someone in Maryland to weigh in on the presidency? Is that the sort of potential litigation or action that a Harmeet Dillon or someone is going to have to take to really make an example of one of these states?
Yeah, 100%. Look, they need to get out to Prince George's County, out to Montgomery County, out to Baltimore City, and they need to drag these folks into federal court. And they need to do what the Biden administration and Kristen Clark did to counties across the country for years during the Biden administration. They need to sue them, and they need to drag them into consent decrees where they force them under penalty of fine to reform these measures and ensure, like you said, that some random illegal alien is not diluting the vote of U.S. citizens who are voting in elections and not really tipping the scales. Look, there's a lot of elections that turn on a few votes, and this is really, if you get enough illegal votes, you can swing elections. I live in Kentucky now. I remember a few years ago, the Kentucky gubernatorial race was decided by 83 votes. Scaring up that many illegal voters in Maryland wouldn't be a problem. Look, the DOJ and the FBI, the election division, Harmeet Dillon, they all need to kind of come down with both feet on top of these counties. And in Maryland, it's Prince George's County, it's Montgomery County, it's Baltimore City, it's Arundel County, it's Baltimore County. But they need to get into it, and they need to bring the force of the federal government to bear on this to ensure that people's votes aren't diluted by illegal voters.
Yeah.
So important.
Well, it's happening all across the country. John and I talked last night and tonight a little bit about the Texas issue, but I want to ask you about this Indian tribe down in Florida. They are fighting Alligator Alcatraz, and they apparently have a history of domestic violence arrests. You guys uncovered this. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is shocking. It's unfortunate a lot of these tribes, and we saw this kind of yesterday with the video that Project Veritas rolled out on the contracting fraud. A lot of these tribes, you think it's just kind of wonderful, everything, but they've got a serious criminal history, and that's what we saw down there with the tribe outside of Alligator Alcatraz. Is the leadership of their, beating their wives, abusing children, substance abuse problems, and they were really kind of a fraud that was used as a hook to sue the state of Florida and the Trump administration with really kind of trumped up charges to push back against Alligator Alcatraz, which was a great tool for ICE in the state of Florida to really address the illegal immigration problem and the detention problem that we had. Unfortunately, it appears if you've got the right price, you can rent a tribe for whatever it is you want to do, whether it's a trumped up lawsuit against the administration or a fraudulent minority contracting company that's contracting with the federal government. You just got to pass enough cash around, and there's tribes around the country who are happy to sign up.
Amazing. So real quickly before we let you go, how do people stay in touch with all the great work that the American Accountability Foundation is doing?
Yeah, we're on Twitter all the time. So we're the Swamp Monitor on Twitter, and AmericanAccountabilityFoundation.com for our website. That's where you get all the great news.
Tom Jones with the American Accountability Foundation. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, coming up, we have a national debt crisis in this country. It has surpassed $38 trillion, and we are creeping ever so close to $40 trillion. And the government is shut down because they can't agree on more spending, not less. So how do we get out of this mess? We're going to get to that after this break.
Hey folks, I've got an important message for you about high blood pressure. It's one of the highest risk factors for mortality. Nearly 1 in 2 adults have high blood pressure, meaning there's about a 50-50 chance you could be affected. Getting help and taking control of your blood pressure is crucial for your health and longevity. And one way to do that is by using 120 Life. And 120 Life is not just to help manage high blood pressure. It also can be beneficial for those with diabetes because managing high blood pressure can help with diabetes, making 120 Life a valuable tool for overall wellness. 120 Life is trusted by healthcare professionals with over 1,000 doctors recommending it to help manage your blood pressure naturally. For a limited time, try 120 Life and save 20% off. Just use the code JTN at checkout at 120life.com. 120 Life offers a risk-free trial with a full refund. If you don't see lower numbers in 2 weeks, go to 120life.com and use the code JTN to save 20%.